Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett, the only man I know that stitch bitches.
Stitch Fix.
Is it Stitch Bitchy? Bitch. I get this box. Like,
I'm not the only guy that does. You know how I know?
You're the only person I know that stitch.
You know
bitches.
how I know? Because I was at a real estate thing one time, and I met up a guy, and he had the exact same shirt on I had, and I said, "Where'd you get that?" He said, "Stitch Fix." And Michelle Lewis, whose morning workout regimen involves kicking her husband Todd out of bed just to let the dogs out.
True. That is true.
Is that like physical effort? Do you like put your legs on his butt to kick him out, or
Actually,
you just like
it's a love pat on his chest to see if he's breathing, and he'll like, "Don't worry, I'll get the dogs." And I'm like, yes,
it worked. It worked. Hey, we like open houses.
Like I do. I love our own open houses, and I love to go to other people's open houses.
We do. We like open houses. How about an open house for a $1.1 billion property?
Ooh.
Billion with a B.
With a B? That's not around here.
That's how much the Tesla Gigafactory cost to make.
Oh.
$1.1 billion.
I drove by it. Where were we going? We were going to Houston or something a couple of weeks ago. And
it's 4 million square feet.
It looked like a mall.
It's bigger than a mall.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, for comparison, this 2-story office building that we own in Dripping Springs, which is, I can't remember now, I think it's 10,000 square feet, was like $2 million. Anyway, open house. Tesla is going to have an open house at their Gigafactory on April 7th.
Let's go.
The public can go.
Let's go.
I would love to go.
Is that a weekday or... Is it a weekday?
I think it's a Saturday. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, no, it is. No. Because I know it's not, because I have something on April 9th. It is a Thursday. Oh, we're in.
We got to go.
We're in.
I'm sure they'll have lots of cool stuff. But it's supposed to be open to the public. You don't need an invite or whatever. You just show up.
Field trip. Mallet Integrity Team
yeah,
field trip.
Let's do it. Did you know that that the property it's on is 2,000 acres? I mean, it's a gigantic property.
Well, it's in a really kind of cruddy area of Austin.
Probably the cheapest place they could buy land was right there.
I bet you those houses over there are now going for crazy. I know that the neighbors behind us, they just moved here from California. And first thing they did is they wanted to buy locally. So they invested in 2 rental properties, and specifically they invested over there.
Well, you can still, there's brand new houses over there for $250,000, $270,000.
Wow.
Like right around the corner.
That's Del Valley School District, right?
That's Del Valley.
Yeah.
So at this factory, which we're going to go take a tour of, they're expecting to have 20,000 employees. And what's his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Yeah. He's also moved one of his other businesses here. He's got a boring company, a tunneling company. Did you know that?
I thought you said boring company.
I did say boring, but I guess his emphasis is different. Boring company, where they dig tunnels, and he moved that to Pflugerville. And then he's also talking about opening a SpaceX facility here in Austin for his rocket ships.
There is a SpaceX facility down in Brownsville.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that he has invested heavily in the school system down there. The Valley, from what I know, the Valley school system has a lot of kind of work. What do they call them? Not work release programs, but like almost like dual credit, and they can graduate with their associate's degree. And so he has invested a lot into the Brownsville school system, very smartly, so that those kids can go work for him.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So if we get to go to this open house, there's a precedent. Apparently, the only thing that's been released so far about the open house here in Austin is Elon tweeted April 1st is the Austin Gigafest at the Gigafactory, and then he corrected himself and said it's April 7th. So, but that's it. But they did open a Berlin factory, and at that factory they had live music and DJs, food trucks, carnival rides, test rides in the Model Y, a factory tour, and an in-person appearance from Elon Musk.
Have you ever thought about owning a Tesla? I'm seeing more and more Teslas driving around here.
Holly really wants one. And I asked her why, and she says it has great storage. That's like the reason she likes it. It just has more storage than just about any other. The Model Y is what she wants.
So does a Ford Explorer. I mean,
well, that's true.
But aren't the batteries like super crazy expensive to replace?
Well, according to the people that have them, that are proponents of them, you're not going to have to replace the batteries for a long time. But they do degrade over time. Any battery that you charge and use and charge and use and charge and use loses. I mean, look at your cell phone. After 2 years, your charge on your cell phone just doesn't hold as well.
Do you want to know what's uglier than a G-Wagon? A Tesla truck.
You're not going to get an argument from me.
What the heck?
I know people think that that's the coolest thing out there, but I just think it's horrible.
I don't see the practicality of it.
I don't either. And it literally looks like a 7-year-old drew it.
I think it was Joe Rogan that I think it had it on his Instagram because he got to tour the facility and he was like, "This is the coolest truck out there." I was like, I don't know if it is.
I don't think it is. Did you see the ad for the Silverado electric truck at the Super Bowl?
No.
Search for that. And while you're looking up that, did you know that in 2021, I didn't realize this, Tesla delivered 936,000 vehicles in 2020. And you know what? If you drive around Austin, I was in Austin this morning and I was laughing because I knew we were going to talk about this. There was 2 Teslas in front of me and I looked in my rearview mirror and there was 2 right behind me. They're everywhere. But there's that all electric Silverado. What do you think of that?
I mean, it looks like a truck, but what goes to my mind? Okay. So number one, I'm like the girl that will run on E and like the light will be on.
Can't do that with electric.
Yeah, the light will be on. I'm like, no, I got another 18 miles. I'm good. So tell me about the battery or the hookup. Okay. So
I don't know what the range is.
But if you're in your house, you have to have something special,
so
right?
I was reading about this today. If you plug your car in, and we'll just say Tesla, I don't know about this truck, into a 120 volt outlet, like you're just plugging it into the wall in your garage, you'll get anywhere from 1 to 4 miles per hour of charge.
Oh.
So you charge it for 6 hours, you could get roughly 25 miles of charge. So you're not going to go anywhere plugging it into 100. You have to get the stage, I think it's called a stage 2 charger, which takes you up to 40 miles per hour of charging. So if you came home and your car had 300 miles of range, you could plug it in when you got home at 6 o'clock at night or whatever, and the next morning it'd be fully charged.
I wonder what that costs you as far as like just to get it set up, but also to get it your electricity each month. I mean, you think it's like...
So I'm just going to go off my memory. It costs anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 to have one of these stage 2 chargers
installed,
wired into the house. And the chargers themselves are anywhere from, I think, $700 to $1,000. And that's what's, I know our listeners can't hear, but that's a smart charger, stage 2 charger hanging on the wall there for that Silverado. But you can't, if you ever see a car plugged into an outlet, a 120 volt outlet, it's really not doing much of anything. And then the second thing you said was, how much does it cost? So the article I read said that to get 400 miles or 350 miles of range out of a gas car costs you roughly $42 now. And to get the same amount of range out of an electric car, if you charge off hours, it's $10 and some change. It's about 25%.
About $9 to reach a full charge.
Yep.
So those little charging stations that you see around town, do they charge
those
them?
are, I think they're called stage. That would be a stage 3 charger, I think. And there's somebody out there that probably thinks I sound like an idiot about this, but those will charge your car much faster, but they're like I think it was voltage, and it was like 800 volts, and no houses have that. So
yeah, but think about it. Like if you're on a long trip, I guess these aren't made for long trips, but this is Texas. So if I'm going to Houston and I stop halfway, to fill my car up, or Buc-ee's, right? I don't know, does Buc-ee's? I haven't seen. Does Buc-ee's have electric chargers? And like I'm filling my gas up, it takes a total of 5 minutes. How long does it take?
Say it takes you 15 minutes to fill up, go to the bathroom, get in the car.
Well,
in 15 minutes, even at a smart charger, you're going to add 20 miles.
If you've ever been to a Buc-ee's, they're like full on grocery carts when you go into Buc-ee's. Like you don't leave with just like one thing at a Buc-ee's.
That's true.
So.
You fill the trunk up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see where this electric car thing goes. Apparently, I can't remember if it was a podcast or an article, but they said that if 100% of the country went to electric cars within the space of a year, that our electrical grid would completely fail. It can't.
I was going to say,
the way it is right now, it can't keep up with everybody having an electric car.
Well, they can barely keep up with Snowmageddon.
That's true.
So
that's true.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think the electric car thing is interesting. I think for right now, they're good as a sort of almost like a second car, really. Because, like you're saying, if you want to, like that trip we did, Holly and I did at Christmas, where we drove 4,000 miles in a little less than 2 weeks, you can't do that in an
I'm a little
car.
more skeptical. I'm like, I know it's probably not a fad, but I'm just a little more skeptical of it. And I don't know, because we got burned one time. We had a Camry hybrid. We paid way too much money for it. And then when we traded it in, because I hated it and I wanted an SUV, we lost our butts on it.
Oh, I know. Hybrids it's sort of like, hey, let's do two things really poorly and put them together.
No, that was exactly how we felt. Exactly how we felt.
So put it on your calendar. We're going April 7th to the Tesla factory for an open house.
One of the things that I thought was kind of cool, we've been talking about a lot of people moving here, and people don't really, I don't think, get or understand that Austin and the Austin area has kind of become this little haven for celebrities.
It's true.
Not only just, you use the dreaded term Californians, but celebrities from all over, and from Nashville to LA are moving here in droves. You mentioned Elon Musk. He bought a monster of a home. Joe Rogan, boy, didn't he set some kind of record on the home that he bought on Lake Travis?
I think he did, yeah.
Of course, here in Dripping Springs, we have our own little local celebrities, Jesse James and Kyle Chandler and Jeb Robertson of Duck Dynasty.
Yep.
Gosh, I mean, if you just kind of, there's a lot of A-list, not even C-list.
I know, but I think the cool thing about that is those guys don't get hounded when they go out here.
No.
Right? I've seen Jesse James at Route 12 a number of times, and there's not people going over there, hey, can I get a selfie? Hey, can I get your autograph? People they're just normal folks.
I mean, he may get it, but I
don't
just
think he gets it out here. He might get it in Austin.
Yeah, I don't think that either they don't know or they don't care kind of thing. And so I started doing a little bit of, reading as to like why they're moving here. And one of the things that I found was interesting was they don't pay for parking anywhere. Well, I mean, unless you go downtown, you kind of do pay for parking, but it's just the convenience of everything here. And you're not getting hounded by paparazzi everywhere.
I've never seen paparazzi in Austin. Have you?
Obviously don't hang out with me enough.
I guess not.
In LA, we have a really good friend of ours. She's a voiceover actor. Now, granted, she's a voiceover actor, but it's not like paparazzi follows her around. But she told me that these celebrities, they actually call the paparazzi up. Oh. If they're leaving a Starbucks or whatever. Well, yeah, I guess it's kind of their whole business is PR, right? See or be seen, kind of thing, and that's just not the way we live out here.
I'm rolling my eyes, but we're gonna be calling paparazzi when our show gets big, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, I guess Willie's not out here as much anymore. I guess he's in his place in Hawaii.
Yeah.
He's kind of hidden out there, but gosh, we have some pretty big names and coming up.
I heard. A couple of years ago, Paul Simon was looking for a place.
Well,
out
he
here.
did.
I don't know if he ever did.
Yeah, Edie Burkell, one of our friend realtors, sold them that property. Actually,
I didn't know they actually closed.
Yeah,
on it.
They closed on it. But for people that don't know, coming up South by Southwest, when is that? That's like I think the middle of March. But you just go downtown. That is a mecca of celebrities. So if you want to do,
place. Yeah. Speaking of being a happening place downtown, I just saw this article today about how much time Austinites sit in traffic, and it was 74 hours last year. 74 hours people sit in traffic.
Last year? Nobody was going to work last year.
Well, and actually, if you compare that to 2019, it was actually 2.5 days less. That 74 hours was 2.5 days less than it was in 2019.
That kind of brings when we were talking about traffic. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It seems like more people are even coming into Dripping Springs or same amount.
Yeah, they're driving into Dripping versus going into Austin. Yeah, traffic's getting bad. But
well, I'm excited to have our next guest on.
Me too, yeah.
Ryan, he's speaking of kind of celebrities. He's kind of a low-key filmmaker and just great guy.
Muay Thai boxing, I guess. Not, I was going to say expert, but he practices it.
That's only because his wife Ashley won't let him become a pro.
Won't let him be a pro. But yeah, we're going to have Ryan in here in a second, so we're going to take a quick little break and get him in here and set up, and we'll talk to you then.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Joining us today, Ryan Sheffer. Thank you for coming in.
Of course.
Ryan is a pretty new resident to Dripping Springs.
Yeah.
When did you get here?
We got to Dripping Springs. Well, we got to Dripping Springs in July of 2021. We first went to Dripping Springs. This is quite interesting that we had friends who were trying to convince us to move to Austin. And the first place they took us was Treaty Oak, which is now like 0.6 miles from our house or something like that. And they took us there. And the point at the time was we were in a place that was so locked down because of COVID that like our kids couldn't go to a park. And this is something that I didn't expect to happen, but we went and there was a park open and there's like a little park at Treaty Oak and you can get drinks and your kids can play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just 3 dozen kids just playing. And I'm going to get emotional. Like I literally got emotional, and I'm not this type of guy that's just like waterworks, but I got emotional because my perspective through all of this has been like, I'll do whatever you want. You tell me to do this, do that. That's fine. Let my kids enjoy themselves.
Enjoy their lives.
And it had been pretty difficult because the kids couldn't even really play with friends much. And so, Treaty Oak became this thing that we were taken to. And I looked at Ashley, my wife, and I was like, I think we're moving to Austin when we came. And then it turned out we found a rental. And 6 months later that we found a house down the street from this original place. Like it wasn't planned, but...
So where were you before?
We were on Orcas Island, which is an island off the coast of Washington.
Okay.
It is unbelievably beautiful, very remote. So if, I don't know that there's a better place to go visit on vacation, but if you're going to go live there, have a plan because it's not exactly the easiest to run a business from. And that was a big thing for me, was running a business from a very remote place where somebody might be, hey, tomorrow we need you in New York City. I'm like, that's very complicated because I need a boat or like a plane charter.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Very much so. And trying to do the math on like, is it faster to take this or that? And,
so on Orcas Island, it was very locked down during COVID though?
Very much so. And I'm not someone
That's surprising to me.
Okay. Well, it was to me too. Yeah. So I guess what I'll say first is that I am a very, individual rights oriented person, but I don't really care what because of that, I don't really care what other people do. And I understood a lot that there are a lot of older people there, retired people, and no hospital.
Yeah.
So especially at the beginning, there was this concern, like, if anyone gets this here, like, what are they going to do?
You didn't know what it was.
Right.
In the beginning, I get it. Yeah. But as time went on.
But a lot of it is once you kind of tie something up, it's harder to untie.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I think that was a big part of it. But I was surprised because living in a remote place, specifically on Orcas Island, where there's not a lot of infrastructure. So the thing I would always tell people why I loved living there was like there'd be a snowstorm, right? And a tree would fall. Well, you'd get stuck behind the tree trying to go into town. And then you'd be like, well, I'm happy that the guy behind me has 2 chainsaws. And now all of a sudden it's like a team effort to remove the tree.
Very self-sufficient, yeah.
So I expected that it would, maybe it'd be like, well, no one's allowed in or whatever it is, but we're all going to just like come at it.
Yeah.
And it proved to be very, it caused a lot of division. And it was the first, that may seem very obvious because it caused division everywhere.
Yeah.
But Trump, for example, I didn't have to listen to stuff about Trump on Orcas. I didn't have to pay attention to the news. I kind of felt like we lived on our own little state to a certain degree. And I personally liked that. And it surprised me how much once this all happened.
It's funny because now you live in Austin and you feel like you're surrounded with all that stuff, but you can still tune it out. It's, you can turn off, you can get off social media because some of that stuff is just in your face all day long. But I'm with you. That used to feel that way in Dripping Springs too, where we felt a little bit isolated from everything out and that happened in the world, but not now.
How have the kids adjusted living here?
Oh, the kids love it. They do. I mean, it is the epitome of something you describe as idyllic. Living there, where it's like, oh, let's go to the beach, and you walk to a beach, and then there's another beach where no one knows about, and it's a very magical place. It's it is the place that lit up the hippie in me. Right, I grew up what a hippie might call square, and my wife, by the way, who I call a hippie, hates the word hippie. I don't know a better word for this, but when you live somewhere like that, I think you realize there is quite a bit of magic in the world. So the kids certainly miss that. It'll become a tradition to go visit there.
Yeah.
But we're very happy to be here. The kids love their schools, and
you have your own little oasis at your home though too. I mean, that's a magical place in itself.
How are you keeping up with that?
Well, I was gonna say that like a part of, well, to answer your question directly, I had a few months of very quickly having to learn how to take care of a garden. I guess people on this listening to this won't know. So we purchased a home with a very, very large garden. I do not have a green thumb. I guess now I maybe have a partially green thumb, but it came through a bit of struggle.
To call it a garden
I was going to
is
say
an
that's an
understatement.
understatement. It had one of the prettiest gardens probably in Dripping Springs, and it's like an acre or something.
It was a private park.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I was told by somebody who was a friend of the previous owners, which, by the way, we're still quite close
we
to
love
the
them.
owners.
Awesome. Yeah, we
went
them.
and visited them a couple weeks ago in their new place. So one of their best friends came and said, okay, so you are now the, I forget how they phrased it, but it was something to the effect of like, you are the superintendent of the Cross Family Botanical Gardens. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of like
caretaker.
that. The caretaker. That's right. That's right. So the garden itself, or what, the plants, Dennis, who had taken care of it previously, took care of it so well that a lot of it was just maintaining and calling him a lot and watering a lot. And it's just hours, which I actually like. A lot of my work is not manual. So I really do enjoy that during the height of the summer. Sometimes it's a little much.
Yeah.
But the koi fish were actually what was difficult. I'd never had a bunch of fish. And so I hate to say this, but 3 died.
Oh.
So
Dennis, I hope Dennis isn't listening.
No, Dennis knew.
Dennis and I have had a talk about this.
And
they had
why
names.
why did they die? Because they like to eat.
Well, why they died, I think, is something I didn't understand. So it's actually maybe different than what you'd originally heard. So why they died, I believe, is that you have to maintain the level of oxygen going into the tank, and the tank is 3,500
I think
gallons,
it was 3,000 plus gallons.
Yeah, something like that. So you need a lot of oxygen being pushed into that to clear things up, etc. And when we moved there, I made the presumption that like, okay, everything's functioning properly. Because I don't know how much air should be pushed into this thing.
Yeah.
So, it must be working great. Well, it turned out it wasn't. And basically it was on its like kind of last leg as they moved out. So over time, I basically by hand was switching out this system over and over again. And I called Dennis and he was like, why are you doing that? You shouldn't have to. I'd leave this going for 2 years and it would work great. And I went, okay. So I went back and I looked at all the pieces to this aerator system, and then the pump itself, I looked it up on Amazon. It was like $35. I was like, okay, well, this is happening now.
Yeah.
So put that in, and then all the problems went away. Mm-hmm. So 3 fish did die. I have had conversation with the crosses. They have literally a stone. There's a fish cemetery, basically.
I'm surprised Dennis doesn't come back and visit the fish in the gardens on a pretty regular basis.
He has been back, hasn't he?
So Dennis and Judy, his wife, they came kind of the height of summer, and I was quite nervous because this is my first time with this amount of land, this amount of property to take care of, and it's beloved for them. And he was very congratulatory of me, which made me feel really good. It's funny because it was probably like my from my own brain's perspective, like the greatest accomplishment I've had in a while, that I was able to go back to Dennis, and he was like, great job. And I'm like, thank God.
So I think our listeners probably don't know, the reason we know Dennis and Judy is because we were the listing agents when you bought the house, and that's how we met you. And they are in our top 5 all-time favorite clients, aren't they? Maybe top 3.
Yes.
They're just,
and the house is just one of our all-time.
Oh, yeah. That was fun. And then to do it, to, be there and help you guys. And I know you love that
and
house.
To become friends and just.
It was a good experience. It's one of those great real estate experiences. I
would love to know if you would like to talk about your home studio and what that consists of, the front part of it.
Well, let's talk first about what you do for a living and then why you actually have a studio.
Oh, sure thing. So I'm a filmmaker. I am a director. I have a company called Mallett. We do commercial production for large brands. We do everything from I'll just give examples right now. We have full-on commercials we're working on with large crews to, smaller videos that are trying to describe, going back to the office after COVID-19 protocols, So what we do, it's all over the map in terms of budget and scale, et cetera. It's generally with larger brands that have a need for consistent video content.
Okay. So
we will usually be working with the same brands every month, bring in a couple different every now and then. But instead of trying to get the biggest contracts all the time, our goal is to get into a client's business and become just kind of their partner. Okay. So if companies are deciding whether or not to start their own production arm, do we need we need to hire a director, a creative director, all these things, we can just come in and say, well, you could do that or just hire us.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are right now right at that edge where they need a lot of consistent content. They don't necessarily know how to find or hire those people on a one-off basis, but they also don't necessarily need to invest $1, $2, $3, $4 million into the recruiting process and all the infrastructure required to do that. So we kind of fit in as companies' production arms.
Okay.
But
you've worked with some big companies, it looks like. We're looking at your website. Did I see?
Yeah,
name some of these companies. Oh, Walmart, Visa.
Yeah, we've worked with a lot of large companies. Consistently, one of our main clients right now is Intuit. It owns TurboTax and QuickBooks and all that. And we're consistently working on things for Google, Facebook, Instagram. We do work with Walmart. We do a lot of work with a company called Chegg that's the biggest provider of textbooks and educational materials for college students. And then we also work with smaller brands that are maybe they've just raised their first round of capital. And I tend to like those projects because they usually haven't defined, a lot of companies at a large size, there's so many lawyers that have to review it that your ability to explore is quite limited. And they're great. And I love those clients as well. But sometimes it's fun to work with the smaller ones, even if they don't have the budgets, because they're coming to you saying, what should we look like in video? And that allows for myself and my team to explore more on the branding front and help them out in a more significant way.
That's very cool. What's the significance of Mile 80?
Okay, so that came from when we lived on Orcas Island. Orcas Island is, as the bird flies, 80 miles northwest of Seattle.
Okay.
And that became kind of my angle because at the time, remote work was less common. This was it wasn't that long ago that we branded Mile 80. I think it was the very beginning of 2019.
Okay.
But even then, every call, they were like, why are you there? And I had to explain, you work with us remote and we have people all over the world that are on our team. And it was kind of odd. So I used it as a conversation starter about like, look, you actually get a different, unique perspective from somebody who doesn't want to be in the city center. So I'm talking to someone in Seattle. I'm like, a lot of those people are the same people. And so if you think about it, the fact that we're spread around the world, we have creatives in different places, and we're not in the city center, there are some benefits when it comes to creativity, in my opinion, because it's a different perspective. You're not going to get the same thing every time.
Yeah, kind of cookie cutter lookalike stuff. Yeah. Yeah, your website is fantastic. We watched some of the videos. It's really good.
And you get to travel all over the world doing this. You got COVID recently in a foreign country.
That is
right?
correct.
Yeah. The C word.
Not currently.
Yeah, not
currently. We have two different we have three studios. We have our studio in Austin now, or, basically in my backyard in Dripping Springs. We have our studio, which is in Curitiba, and I probably messed up
Curitiba
in Brazil, which is in southern Brazil, and then in Bucharest in Romania is the other location for our studio.
Cool.
So we operate on a 24-hour time schedule. So that's why we're in different time zones. So, today or any given day, we have 12 to 15 different projects that have to be delivered at different times of day. And I'm trying to make sure that I work to hand off as much of that supervision work. So I'm not just working.
So that was what I was going to ask you. What is your main, so you're not behind a camera, what's your main job in Mile 80?
Yeah. So my main job at this point is kind of a hybrid between sales and management. So while I do direct, so for example, I'm headed to Yukon at the end of this week, next Monday, to film a spot with a woman named Paige, who is, I believe, the best female basketball player right now in the NCAA. Huh. And she is at Yukon, and we're going there. So I'll be directing that. I won't be behind the camera. I'll be directing a commercial shoot with 15 people on set and all that. Geez. And then, but that is probably once to twice per month. And the rest of the month is a lot of post-production. For people who don't know how filmmaking works, for most filmmaking, it is 90% after it's captured or before. There's very little time where you're sitting there with the camera and you're recording. Most of it is you're planning to go stand with the camera, sit with the camera, or you're looking at what you captured and you're putting it in an order so that it makes sense. When it comes to what I do, at this point, we have full-time, we have 13 people. I'm trying to do that math right. It might be 14 or 15. It's been...
They do the editing?
They do editing, animation, graphic work. So we have designers, animators, editors, and we also do have directors and producers as well.
That's cool.
Most of my job becomes engaging with the clients, finding new clients as they can be found, and then making sure that we have the bandwidth and the team available to tackle the projects as they come in.
How'd you get into that?
I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I lost my shirt multiple times trying to make my own movies. And I realized that consistent...
Did you literally lose your shirt? Because
probably.
I really want to go there.
I probably lost my shirt. But
since we're not video, I have to say that Ryan's a very good-looking gentleman. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
This will make me uncomfortable. So yeah. If you try to make an independent film, which I did when I was 24, I wrote my first movie, and now I've written another movie, which I call like my first movie, because the first one it wasn't quite the same, and we can get into that later. But the point being that the first time I tried to make a movie, went all the way through getting money, and there was $4 million in a bank account ready to go make this movie, and it was like, holy crap! I did what I planned to do as a little kid. Like, I'm going to make this movie I wrote, and it was an action movie. I was so excited. And then it just fell apart. And the investor, who I didn't know personally, like the producer had found, it turned out was sketchy, which is super common. And they got in a lawsuit and they locked up the dude's capital because he was in a lawsuit with someone else who said that he'd messed it up. Now, it's probably a sign that you don't do business with that person, right? But as a 24-year-old, I'm so excited to like make a movie. And I had, not that I had a lot of money, but for a 24-year-old, it was a significant amount for me. And I was out like, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in my savings, and I just took it down to zero trying to get this because I was being promised like, okay, 2 weeks from now this capital's getting deposited, and it never happened. That led to a shift to, okay, well, where's their money? Met people in the commercial space. The really cool thing about working in commercials is it's always changing. So you can work, you know, for Walmart, we do toy commercials, and then I'll do something that's kind of an edgy piece about a basketball player. And then I'm doing, right now we're working on a diversity and inclusion piece for Intuit that's like very heartfelt. And you know, so you get to bounce around, you get to have these different experiences. I like that. And also, I've never been somebody who wanted to be a starving artist. I have a lot of friends who want to do that and who have done that. And then they
aspire to be starving artists.
Well, you have a family now too. So
there we go. You got to make some money. That's the short version.
Yeah.
And
you get to make money doing something that you love doing.
It's at least a lot closer than doing something that isn't it at all.
Well, you mentioned before we started recording that you have recently wrote your first feature film.
Yeah, and I guess what I had just mentioned is it's kind of a lie because I did write a feature before, but it wasn't something like this, where this is a movie that I would say is a real movie. We're going to make it. It's called Anatomy of a Love Story. I am going to, as of now, alongside my wife, as she and I are equals in all things, we are going to fund it ourselves. And
what does that mean? That means you come up with all the money to get it from this idea to, and where would this be released?
So this is all questions I'm pursuing, right? Let's take a step back and then I can dive into what the movie is about. But in general, after that first experience where like lost my shirt in the figurative sense, made commercials. Well, now we're in a place where my company, though it does require me on a daily basis working, it's a company in a way that I think I'm sure you both will understand. There's a beginning to a company that isn't really a company. What it is it's a name and an idea and one or two, three people who are like, this will be, you know, this is a thing. And you basically
pursuing something. Yeah.
You say that it's a thing, but it isn't a thing in the same way that it will be at some point. Right. And at this point now we have enough inbound of work. I have enough people to hand things off to that it gave me the mental space to step away and write something. So for basically 40 days straight, Christmas till like a week ago.
Oh, wow.
I was writing 8 to 10 hours a day from a concept that my wife and I had outlined about a year previously. And
what's it about?
So it is quite autobiographical, which I never thought that I would do that. But anyway, my wife, Ashley, and I are very much in love. And we feel very blessed about that. And a lot of times...
They're so cute. Yeah. They are so cute together. I love Ashley.
I do too. And thank you for saying that. So she had a lot of crazy things happen in her life. The simple thing I say to people when they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, try being 19, homeless and pregnant in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So we often talk about the fact that we lived within 3 miles of each other. And I, at the time, this was right when I said I was writing a movie, like I had an easy job. For the first time, I was 24, 25, 26, whatever, you know, that age. I started making 6 figures and having no bills, right? So it like became this easy life where I'd started to make filmmaking a thing. And I was just going out with friends, having fun. And my future child was being born. And my future wife was going through this really, really hard series of moments in her life where people were trying to get her to have an abortion, which she refused to have. And she was just I said, I forget if it was rolling or not, but I said, like, my wife from the beginning has always just been like, I'm going to do what I want. Like, I'm the shit.
That's why you and her are friends, Michelle.
That's correct. That's correct. That energy responds to each other. And so the script is dueling narratives that are very different. So as I say that my life was easy at that time, I went through some tough stuff in high school that led to some internal struggles with anxiety and depression around that, that very few people understood or knew, because I was pretty good at like projecting a different
covering it up
energy. So, but her issues were very like
out there,
physical, easy to show.
Couldn't ignore them. Yeah.
Mine were internal. But we feel that both of us had to live through these moments at this same time in order to be a match. So the story is about both of us growing through our own struggles. You switch back and forth between both of them. And the end is actually us meeting, with the idea being that the prequel to a love story is actually what's more important than the love story, in our opinion. That the people have to meet at the right time. They have to match in the correct way. And we always tell the story after. Like, you see someone and right. There's love at first sight, and then it's like, okay, and there's going to be a struggle because, they won't know how to fit together. And that's every love story. And so we set out to create what happens before. And
I think that's fascinating.
Great.
I love that. My husband and I, we'll be married 29 years this year. And
congratulations.
Thank you. My husband was going to be the best man at my wedding.
I think you told me this.
Yeah.
That's
so
fun.
Like, to hear you talk about, and I know a little bit about Ashley's story as well, but just to see the chemistry of the two of you together and the energy that you have surrounds your children is it's beautiful. It really is. Just you're very, I gravitate towards you guys.
Holly and I talk about that all the time, that we've had all these terrible things happen to us in our lives, but without those things, we would have never met. And you're right, that great love stories come out of trials and tribulations sometimes, not all the time.
Well, yeah, I think that, for my husband and I, we bring out the best version of each one of us. And we've had our shares of issues prior to meeting, but who we are now, I've been with Todd since I was 20 years old. It's my entire adult life. It's who I know, it's who I am. So I think I'm really excited for you and Ashley to get that. I think it'll really speak to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd love to know when you get it done where we could go and watch it.
Well, we'll promote it here.
Yeah.
This is a long way around from saying, I don't know yet where it gets distributed. And it's been a kind of fun process to talk to people, because generally, especially for a first film, people are trying to get someone to give them money, or trying to get somebody to tell them how it's going to get distributed, all this stuff. And through my own background in filmmaking, I do have people in my sphere that work in that world. It's a bit of a different world from commercials, but I was able to reach out, and the conversations are different, because they're like, okay, so you need, I'm like, no, I just spend my own money. And they're like, what? It sort of starts a different process, which I've enjoyed, because now it's just like, okay, so if you make the movie, I think the term was negative pickup. So, they start to be open to be like, once you have it, take it to me, and then we'll take you through that process of getting it.
Well, and
to
I would
people.
think in the process of developing the movie, if you had somebody bring in money, then they're going to start to influence the creative part of it.
That's correct.
Right?
And this is a weird movie, right? So
you might have somebody that says, I'll give you the money, but you got to take out that one part right there because I'm not too happy with that. And then all of a sudden it's not your vision anymore.
Well, and that's always going to be the case. And it's understandable, right? You take money for a business, then people get a say. And I've gone through that process myself of taking money for a business, and you realize like, oh yeah, that's helpful, but it creates a different process. And
lose a little bit of the control.
100%. And then the case of this, if you come to somebody and you say, okay, we're doing a love story, and you say, but they meet at the end, I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, I love this. I will give you money. I have a bunch of money. I'm sure that exists. But on average, the responses I'm getting to the script amount to, this is good. And some people like the structure, but they're really just like, I don't know.
There's got to be a market, though, for movies and scripts that are different, because a lot of the love story, of the different genres of movies, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, just repackaged a different way. So it's almost like a whole different genre, right? So there's got to be a market for that.
I mean, and maybe there's not. And the benefit is I don't care.
You're going to make it anyway.
That's what
Good for you.
So I want to circle back to
The studio?
To studio.
Okay,
I think your studio is just amazing and super cool. So tell us
Cool.
about that. Tell us about the front end of it and then the back end of it.
So this crazy house that you all
You're welcome.
sold to us. Yes, thank you. So first of all, I will say that you all were very helpful and not mad at me when I just sort of sat there and said, like, this will be our house.
Yeah.
And then I do also want to talk about like how I knew, because you may not even know this story, and I don't believe you do at all.
I think I know a little bit about
what happened before.
Yeah.
No.
But I'll talk about the studio and then we'll go back to that. Okay, so in the house or outside of the house, there is a tea house, and it is like an authentic, shipped in from Japan, various things or things bought from Japanese resellers at who knows what market over the course of the years. It's a tea house. It's filled with, you walk in and it's feudal Japan is how I describe
You
it
got
to people.
kimonos and tea sets. And,
Completely.
yeah.
And we informed them. This is funny. We informed them of many things that we intended to keep in the house, which we happily paid for. And in retrospect, and I've said this to Dennis since then, I was like, Dennis, you weren't moving this. There's no way. And he's like, that's okay.
Yeah.
And
They knew every piece they had. They knew the history behind it. They knew where it came from. They could remember the store they bought it in. It's fantastic.
there's like one or two that they wish they didn't sell to us, which is funny. So we have this antler.
Where
know
were
what?
they going to put it?
They may say that, but I think the fact that you guys love that stuff as much as they do, that's magic to them.
Yeah, we have.
I was very good as the tour guide as far as like
You
getting to
were.
know the story and all around the gardens, and then we enter the Japanese tea garden. And
So back to this because I keep dancing around your specific question. So there is a tea house, and that tea house, when we got it, had a trap door, and the trap door went to a shipping container that was just storage. It was just filled with all sorts of that I've now gone through all sorts of things of varying degrees of usefulness.
Did they leave him there?
Oh yeah, it was filled. So I had a conversation with Dennis, and Dennis is like, "Listen, this has proven to be a lot." And I was like, "Dennis, we'll take care of it." And basically, there was a verbal agreement of we're going to move in a little earlier than is going to happen, and the exchange will be that we're going to pay or put in our own effort to remove some things. So it was all understood. There were not surprises except for I was entertained at times by like what was in there. So there's this storage unit thing,
Connex box.
the Connex box just filled with stuff. We cleared that out, and I made it my spaceship. So it is now a white with soundproofing that is gray, shipping container. It's a full editing suite, studio recording situation. And the goal was to have the yin and yang in the backyard. So the one side is like the past and the koi fish and this Japanese tea house to sit in, and you feel like you just should meditate. And then all of my electronics and the parts, the techie parts, are just shoved into this Connex box. And the goal is to make it cool, but also not really hospitable, because I want my goal to be to get out and like be back with my family and all that. So my pride and joy of that whole thing of designing that with my wife was now whenever I have a Zoom call with people, no one believes it's real, because it completely looks
They
like
think you have a green screen?
Yeah, they think that it's a fake background. They believe the most common comparison, I'm not sure if either of you remember Jamiroquai from the 90s. That was this singer, but Jamiroquai had this video where he was in this crazy looking box and the ground moved, and a bunch of people are like, this looks like the Jamiroquai video. I'm like, I forgot that, but I guess
We'll have
so.
to look that
I'll have
up.
to look
You
it
should
up.
you should put that up.
I don't
now.
even know how to spell Jamiroquai.
I don't know either, but I think if you look up Jamiroquai,
Jamiroquai. I don't know.
there we go.
Oh, look at that.
Google's smarter than us.
Look at that.
Okay, let's see.
So you see that far right image where it says more images? Yeah. This is where people this is where people think I am. It doesn't quite look like that, but I do understand the comparison.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you've been a great resident to Dripping Springs for sure, but I wanted to talk to you about your recreational.
Well, he was going to tell us about the other story about what happened prior.
Go ahead.
Remember?
I guess I'll do that. I can do that quickly. But basically, my wife went on and you may have heard this part. My wife was teaching yoga, went on a retreat, and she left me with the kids for a week. And that for me is like 6 years because I'm absolutely love being a father, but I'm more than willing to admit
I've
things.
Gotcha. I'm the same. Yep.
So I told her, okay, deal. Great. You go do that, but you got to manifest us this house because we've been searching for 6 months. And, you know, I'm sure anyone listening to this knows that it's a difficult thing right now, was then a year ago, finding a house around here. And so she messages me on a Wednesday and she's just like, this is the house. And it was that house. And she sent it to me. I'm like, holy crap. And then I looked, and for us, you know, I'm a very cash oriented, not loan oriented person. So immediately I saw the number and I'm like, well, that's a mortgage. And in my goal, I would have been like, I just want to buy a house in cash. And she and I are different in that way. So I had to settle in with that. And then I sat with it for a minute and she wasn't coming back home for a couple of days. And I was just like, oh crap, this will be the only house she can have. We're going to go to this house and she will not be able to look at any other house. And so we're driving there and I was like, Ash, I need you to know that I don't know if we can get this house. I don't know if we're going to win the bid. I don't know. And she's like, it's going to be fine. I'm not going to be, you know, it'll be fine. It's not a big deal. And I was like, I know you. If this house is 50% of what these photos are, this will be the house you want. So just please stay. And within 10 minutes, she was crying.
She in the kitchen with me.
Yeah, she told me that.
Yeah, in the kitchen with me. And then she said, I need to figure out how to work on Ryan because I don't know if he wants this house as much as I do. And she just has tears in her eyes. And you're out in the garden, I think, chasing the kids because one's trying to jump in the pool.
Yeah, I mean, and I did immediately want it just as much as her. And, you know, for me, it was coming to grips with the fact that I've always been a frugal person. I've gone through losing all of the money. So I'm very hesitant to spend, even though it was well within what we were able to afford. It still was a large sum and it was nerve wracking. But we came around. But anyway, we absolutely love the house.
Well, we fell in love with that house. But I tell you that Steve and I both, we were saying it's going to take that special person to understand the gardens.
And you guys came along, and that is
both of us.
Yeah. When you're in real estate and you do a deal where you love the sellers and you love the buyers and both are so happy with the experience, that doesn't happen very often.
There could not have been a better universe. The universe opening up and finding you guys for this house.
When you find the right place.
Exactly.
Yeah, my parents had a house that they loved, that my whole family loved. And, you know, when they bought it, it wasn't worth tons, but it went up in value as markets tend to do. And they had this experience where they sold to someone who offered the most and the person flattened the house. And it was a special house. I mean, it wasn't. I
could tell you if you'd have come in and said to Dennis and Judy, "Hey, we're just going to tear this house down," but they would have said, "I don't care what you offer, we'll not sell it to you."
Exactly.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, can we talk about?
Now you can talk
about Muay Thai.
Now you can talk about what did I say? The Muay Thai, the art of 8 limbs, and Steve said
I didn't know that was the term. Yeah. I'm probably less educated.
The art of 8 limbs. And Steve said
we read an article on Google, so now we're experts.
He said there's only 4 limbs, and I said the fist, elbows, knees, and shin.
Okay, now I understand. Now I understand.
So first of all, how old are you?
I'm 35.
35. Okay, and you do this Muay Thai, which is Thai boxing. How'd you get into that?
Okay, so I that story I haven't told in a minute. So I had a roommate around, and this is interesting because in the movie I wrote that this moment occurs in the actual movie. So I had a roommate, and it's a bit different in the script, but he was really nervous to do what he wanted to do, and what he wanted to do is become a fighter. And he told me this, like,
oops, sorry.
He told me this once, and I was like, why are you nervous? And he's like, I just don't know. Like, you're going to go to this gym and all these people beat you up. And I was like, I'll go with you. And I just threw it out there, like, to my buddy. And he was like, okay. And then right after, I had this rule in my 20s that basically, if somebody was offering me an opportunity And it wasn't illegal. It wouldn't get anyone hurt. And I had no reason to really say no. The rule was I had to say yes. This led to me doing triathlons. This led to like all sorts of things happening that were really good. And a lot of this has to do with my own maybe internal issues with anxiety and depression that I just would just be like, you have to do that. Right. So he had hinted at it. And then, you know, I was just like, yeah, I'll go with you. So the day comes, we're supposed to go together, and he chickens out. And he just decides he's not going to go. His name is Damien. I love him. He is still a good friend. And I don't know if he would say chickened out. Maybe he just decided he wasn't going, right? But the point is, he didn't go. And I had spent time working myself up, so I went. And I had the way this gym worked. They had like a one-on-one session with somebody. And I like instantly loved it. Because what I found out quickly was I could punch hard. So I had one thing I could do good. And that one thing allowed for all of my failure to feel less daunting.
Wow.
But everything else I sucked at. Like I couldn't jump rope. And jumping rope, and this was boxing, Muay Thai, like it's all MMA. So MMA in general usually is going to be boxing, Muay Thai, and jiu-jitsu or wrestling. There's a bunch of other things that get involved, but put simply, that's probably what you're training. And so I found out, okay, I can punch, but I suck at everything else. And what it made me realize was as you become an adult, and at this time I was 25, I believe, as you become an adult, life lets you kind of do whatever you're good at. You can just sort of wake up every day and only do the things that you're good at and get validated for doing the things that you're good at. And I remembered as a kid, I had to play soccer even though I sucked.
Right.
Some days were soccer days. And so I pushed myself to be okay with sucking at this. And it became rather addictive because I was reminded of, like, I was humbled daily. And that humbling also was coupled with subtle improvements. I could punch hard. Okay, now I could jump rope. Okay, now I could do a cross on a jump rope. And I was being humbled, but improving. And it really, really helped me mentally to understand the process of growth personally. And I've been in love with it ever since. So I've done it for 10 years. And I never took a fight because as I was going to take my first amateur fight, I met Ashley. And she supports everything I do except for two things. One is you're not allowed to take a fight. And you can't jump out of planes. Those are the only two requests. I thought they were reasonable.
Smart. So what is, you go to the gym and you were saying 10th Planet's your gym that you go to.
Yeah.
You go to the gym. What's a training day look like for Muay Thai?
So for Muay Thai, I do two different things at 10th Planet. So first of all, 10th Planet's in Austin. I've gone to other gyms. I started in LA. But 10th Planet's a great gym for anyone who wants to get into martial arts at all. And a daily practice changes depending on whether I'm doing a one-on-one or I'm doing a class session. One-on-one is going to be a bit more intense. It's also going to be a bit more focused on probably skills. Whereas like a class training is probably more focused on one skill. So maybe you're going to work today on slips. And a slip is if someone punches you just slightly slipping out of the way, right?
So do you practice that by somebody swings at you and you try and get out of their way?
Yeah, 100%.
Teach me your ways, Ryan.
And if you don't get out of the way, they smack you in the face?
Yeah, when you start that, well, it sounds worse than it is. When you start, you're going to be put either with someone else who's just starting, or what I think is better, if you work with someone like me, I'm going to know that you're probably scared, right? Everyone gets scared of being punched, even if you're a tough guy. That's my experience, right? And they'll go slow until you get better. But I mean, on Monday, I did a slip series of drills with someone else who is, has fights, is, I believe, technically a pro fighter. And he and I both punched each other in the face on accident, right? Because we were slipping and we didn't slip.
Are you wearing headgear or something? Or?
In that case, you're not.
But you have gloves on.
You have gloves on. And you're also not, you're not, there's a big difference between controlled swinging at somebody and trying to knock their block off. And if you're at a good gym, and I've been at a range of gyms, it's more a good gym with good training partners. It's a bit like fencing, not sword fighting, where you're going to get tapped in the face and then you're like, oh shit, that means I need to put my hands up, right? Or I need to slip out of the way. Oh, my bad. But there's this camaraderie of exchange that occurs.
Almost a dance.
It's 100% a dance. Yeah, it's completely a dance when it's done well. And but you can also, I mean, you can go to other gyms, and 10th Planet is a great gym, so this does not happen. But I've been to gyms where it's just fighting. And that for me is never something I want to participate in, because even if I'm the person beating the other person up, it's just not a healthy
You're not
practice.
learning anything, right? Because if your technique is really bad, but you're beating up the other person, you're just going to continue with that bad technique, right?
Well, even if your technique is good and the other person's is bad and you're just bloodying them up,
but you're leading with aggression, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's that's what I don't get. Like if you're leading with aggression versus, like you said, the dance, learning the techniques.
Well,
how do you feel after you go do a workout? I know you do some sparring. So how do you feel after sparring with somebody? And what do you do? Spar for like 10 minutes?
So they're going to be 2, 3, maybe 5-minute rounds. I mean, most of the time it's probably a 3-minute round that you're going to spar. After sparring, you feel a lot of camaraderie with the other person if you've managed to make it a dance. There's a feeling of, platonic love sort of thing, without sounding cheesy. Like there's an emotional exchange that's going on because you were able to push someone so that they felt just uncomfortable enough to overcome things, but they also felt safe. So there's a lot of positive energy that comes from it. The closest exercise, and this is something people often, if they haven't done martial arts, find weird. The closest exercise when it comes to the emotional response post-training session is yoga. If you do martial arts correctly, in my opinion, you leave the world looks a little brighter, a little more colorful, and you're relaxed, and you've got a killer workout, but it's not the same as, you run a 10-mile run that feels a certain way, and it can feel amazing, but it doesn't quite feel, for me at least, as uplifting as this, because it's not just that you punched or got out of the way of a punch or a kick or a shin or an elbow or whatever. It's also that you overcame fear, that you overcame something uncomfortable. And that's where I see the benefit in yoga. And that's why I connect the two. That for me, those are more valuable. There's all sorts of ways I can lift weights. I can dance. I can do any number of things to stay in shape, but none of the others for me treat the mental part of me as well as martial arts does.
That speaks to me.
Aspects of your physical and mental health. It touches all that.
It's almost like you doing your rim to rim, where it's mine
is running, and I you spar with somebody for 5 minutes. It's the same as if I go run with somebody for 2 hours. There's a kinship there. There's you've spent time with that person. You developed a relationship. I love that feeling. So I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to tell us about your time here in Dripping Springs, or?
Oh, I love Dripping Springs. We're not going to be moving for a long time. I've been searching with my wife for a place that feels remote enough, but allows for access to, for example, an airport. And Dripping Springs for us has been perfect. We're really enjoying Austin in general, but we live near Fitzhugh, and the ability to take that Fitzhugh Drive to the 290 into town. It's this right combination of just far enough that I don't feel like I'm in the city, and just close enough that any day of the week, if I need to get into the city, that I can.
And it still has a small town feel.
Yeah.
Has it started to feel like home when you pull up that driveway?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I still have the feeling that I hope Dennis is happy with what we're doing. So,
Dennis is happy.
But there is this thing that with that house in particular, where so much love was put into it, that though it does feel like home, it's still slowly becoming ours.
It's magical.
Yeah.
That place is magical.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, man, thanks for coming in. This was fascinating. We really enjoyed time with you. So really appreciate you today.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening.
If you have comments or feedback, please email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Please follow us and leave a review.
Thanks again for listening.